Going into this movie, I was expecting some generic, gory, hard R horror film with cheesy 70s or 80s styles effects and not that much more to offer. However, I would challenge you that this movie is barely a horror flick. It is truly like a mystery sci-fi or something similar. It's not particularly gory throughout or full of like these cheesy jump scares. Rather, this movie indulges you in an eerie atmosphere with an unsolved mystery. And that mystery really is what this alien is. And it prevents this otherwise slow film from being a boring film. It's important to distinguish that a slow film is one that forces the person watching it to observe the environment, the acting, the cinematography, rather than just focusing on the plot, whereas a boring film lacks an eventful plot in the first place. Alien really perfects this balance by presenting a really basic plot that still moves forward and has a clear arc, while taking most of that time in development to create an atmosphere that's pretty creepy and might be even creepier than the monster itself. To speak of the atmosphere without speaking of the cinematography and score of this film would be a crime. The goosebump giving music by Jerry Goldsmith, mixed with the perfectly eerie, creaky sounds of the ship, keeps the viewers on their toes throughout the film and have to be the highlight of the film. Meanwhile, Ridley Scott once again does a beautiful job of making the ship feel claustrophobic and using a balance of light and shadow in order to do so. One of the easiest ways to see how he does this, like specifically, is the light in these bright white living quarters, and then you have the dark grays and like almost creepy dark pipes of the rest of the ship. The acting, it's hit or miss. None of the characters are portrayed by any big Hollywood actors for the time. This did help keep the film from feeling too surreal, as packing a crew full of 7 of the biggest stars at the time would make like an awkward feeling that the film was kind of a sellout. However, it did produce moments where the film felt like it could have been a lot better with more experienced actors. It should be taken into consideration, though, that this movie was one of the first sci-fi films to have a female lead, which was way ahead of its time, specifically for many other genres as well. This is kind of a shame because the way that Ripley's character is written is really bland and unlikable, which if you watched my review of Any Given Sunday, which came out around the same time and is the same way I felt about its female lead. Maybe it's my personal opinion, or maybe it's kind of an artifact of the time. But like in the late 70s, a lot of the female leads felt kind of boring and, written there to be a female lead and not for much other issues. And when I finished this film, I was still really left with an uneasiness. The film is not a horror in the sense of hacking and slashing and yelling in your face, but it's a horror in the sense that it creates an uneasy feeling in you throughout the whole movie. Ridley Scott, a legend in the sci-fi horror genre, wanted to come back and impress the naysayers with this film, and it definitely shows in the final product. Alien is truly an instruction manual to the new age horror films on how to create uneasiness and use atmosphere as a tool of the trade.